Hello, folks. Welcome, everyone. Chris, speak.
Did the intro run?
Yep. Hello, folks.
Okay, that's weird. I never saw the intro.
Okay, he's on a bit of a delay.
Everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, I am, and it's turning out to be more of a delay than I thought.
Do I need to stick around to help with the delay? Past the Gen Con update?
Chris, do you have headphones?
All right.
It's not a stream without tribbles.
Perhaps find a phone.
It wasn't just bad. It was doing fine, and now it's turned into a shit show. Okay. All right. Did the intro run? Okay.
He's on a 30-second delay loop.
Apparently.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
The thumbs up happened when I heard you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that little delay getting off the ground here. Basically, what's going on is you can see that the display is a little bit different, and that's because I am using a different computer than I normally do, and it was having a hard time there. I've tried to do what I normally do, which is have the YouTube feed going at the same time, and yeah, not so much, not on this computer that's attached, this old computer that's attached only via Wi-Fi. So I, of course, am Chris Weave. It of course, is Saturday night at 10 o'clock, so it's Starfleet Tactical time. I've got Pat Doyle with me, as always, well, as most of the time, when he's not off being in
not quite always anymore.
Yeah, it's not always anymore. And also, Lissa's going to hang around a little bit today so that we can hear her Gen Con report. So the question is, Pat, actually, there's two questions. The first question is, I don't know about you. I'm still in the case where I'm not speaking for my employer. Has anything changed with you in that regard?
Absolutely not. Even less.
Okay. Even less than it was before, which is pretty impressive because it was pretty much like not at all before.
It was zero.
It was zero, and it's gotten even less than that. So we are breaching new theoretical ground in not speaking for one's employer.
Agreed.
But the other question is, do we want to listen to Lissa's Gen Con report first, or do we want to go to the part where you make fun of me for my computer choices?
Such a rich choices to choose from. But
roll a dice for it.
I've been saving up the computer mockery for a while, so that can say, why don't we have Lissa's Gen Con report?
That sounds great. So, Lissa, tell us. Most people don't realize exactly how critical you are to the show, except when people let me be in charge and run stuff, and then it becomes immediately apparent how critical you are to the show. But you were off doing Gen Con stuff last week. How'd that go?
I was. It went really well. We were mostly in the Marriott running Rupture. I'm still hearing an echo. Do you have headphones, Chris?
They are not configured. I might be able to do that. Tell you what, I will mute whenever I'm not
turn
talking.
down your volume a little.
I will try to do that. I'll also try muting when I'm not talking. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we were mostly in the Marriott running Rupture. kind of as a preview to the Kickstarter, which comes out on October 5th. And that went really well. We had everyone just in stitches. We were like one of the loudest rooms in the Marriott. Like people were just having an absolute blast. And we actually had the Gen Con staff like give us a lot of like really good compliments saying that, you know, like we were really easy to work with. That like everyone that came out of our games looked like they were actually having a good time, which apparently was not always the case for some of those game rooms. But Rupture and it was like Olympia something, like those were the two that like people came out of the room and they were just like telling everyone about. And so we did hit a snag on Saturday night. Our HR person ended up going to the hospital on her birthday. So she's got a heart condition. She's fine. It's something she's dealt with her entire life. She did have her doctor's appointment today or something like that. Just as like a follow-up. But so when all of this had started, when I'd signed up to go to Gen Con, I was signed up to run 3 games. Well, one of us had to drop out because of health reasons, so that ended up being 4. And then because of that, that ended up being 5. What some of you don't know is that despite being a prolific player of TTRPGs, I had never ran a game prior to Gen Con. So this was like a very epic trial by fire. We ended up having a Stoneborn Barbarian himbo that basically, for all intents and purposes, was Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. Because they decided in the game on Sunday morning that I picked up that there was going to be a chipmunk at the entrance to one of these houses. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you get this chipmunk. The chipmunk had an intelligence of 4. For reference, average intelligence in Rupture is a 3. The Stoneborn had an intelligence of 1. So we basically had Tree Kronkborn, the Stoneborn Barbarian. This was the only group that did not do the Kool-Aid Man with the Barbarian in my games. We had a dwarf pick up a whale and just like plop it down on a pirate ship in my games. Of course, as I said, we also had plentiful amounts of Kool-Aid Manning from the Barbarians. We had dire rat surfing. I had to say, roll for arson multiple times. And because of something that occurred on Friday night, I also introduced something I called the Indiana Secret, which is basically just weed. And so in the Sunday morning game, I introduced, or no, it was Saturday. In the Saturday afternoon game that I ran, I had to say, roll for munchies. My games were just an entire thing of memes. My games were one giant meme, and I kept, whenever it would get to the BBEG fight, I kept rolling so horribly that the BBEGs became a meme in and of themselves. So I had a blast. I didn't get to go around to a lot of the other things there. I did go to the exhibitor hall on multiple occasions, and that's why I also have the cat paws now. And spent way too much money, but I had a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a good time. That's really cool. I'm glad I'm glad that worked.
I have not been to Gen Con for several years, so I would like to go again.
So how did the stream go without me?
I don't know, Chris. How did the stream go?
I think it went relatively well. I did my what the U.S. Navy taught me about Starfleet talk. and I think it went reasonably well.
Even
So
on the
that's-
old computer?
No, this was on the new computer. I hadn't yet started the rebuild that is currently in the process of going on the newest of my Macintoshes. So all right, so go ahead, Pat. That's your cue. Go ahead.
Chris has a Sony Surface Pro, I think the latest and greatest one. Well, maybe not the latest and greatest one now. It might be one generation old because he hasn't opened it yet. He used it yet.
So that is slightly incorrect. It is.
Yeah, but it's correct enough. I'm willing to go with it.
Once, Pat. Once.
Yeah, so Pat is mostly correct. It's not that it has been taken out of the box. It has been charged. I've played with it some. I ran into a couple of things that were kind of frustrating in trying, because what I really wanted was a tablet computer, right? I really wanted a tablet computer, not an iPad, because an iPad isn't a computer. An iPad is a toy. It's a toy that I've spent a lot of money on, but it's not really something that you can use to do creative work on. And I'm looking for something that I can use to computerize my notebook, and I can carry it around with me, and I can write on it and stuff like that. Or at least I thought that's what I wanted, because, hey, it's a Surface. You're supposed to be able to write on it. I have yet to find a tablet that is as good at dealing with writing type stuff as my Palm Pilot was. What I really, yeah, and so the thing I had 20 plus years ago, at least 20
you understand
years ago,
you just have better memories of that because it was such a novel, cool thing 20 years ago.
No.
Okay.
Because what I want to be able to do is like do an outline. It wasn't perfect, right? And so there's certainly things that the more modern stuff can do that it couldn't. But I want to be able to like put a cursor in place, write on something, and have it be like bulletproof in putting the stuff where I want it to be. I had an outliner on that device that worked great for that. Graffiti is much better than any of the other handwriting things. With OneNote on this Surface, I can't figure out how to make it consistently put the cursor where I want it to put it. It's just sort of, it's not well designed, and I get frustrated with it. And in terms of it as a laptop, I mean, I've got the special case that has a keyboard, but it's not, it's not as good a laptop as a laptop is. And it's not as good a tablet as my Palm Pilot was in a lot of ways. And so I got very frustrated with it and sort of put it aside as something that was going to be a project. It wasn't just going to be like I do a couple of things and now I'm ready to rock and roll. It was going to be a project to get it up to speed. And I bought it in January 2020. So I'm a little behind. But
I always kind of figured at some point I can upgrade my Surface and hand you $500 so that you get something out of it.
Should we give Chris a round of applause?
So for what it's worth, Pat, I have thought about just putting it in a box, and one day this box shows up on your doorstep with a new computer in it. I have thought about that.
My Surface is,
and the only reason I'm not there yet is because you may recall one of the reasons why I wanted to get a Windows box to do this is because OneNote for the Macintosh is such a shit show. OneNote for Windows actually works pretty well.
Yeah,
and
I'm a huge fan of OneNote on Windows.
Yeah, and so I'm less of a fan of OneNote on the Surface as I am on OneNote on a regular Windows box. So I'm still trying to sort of figure it out. And one of the things I learned a long time ago is that a lot of times to figure stuff out, I just got to buy the hardware and go hands-on with it.
Yeah,
you can only learn a certain amount online, just reading stuff, and then you have to go hands-on it with it.
Yeah.
But you will be pleased to know, Pat, and this is something you haven't heard yet. Brian Haven's the only person who's heard this story so far.
Oh, all right.
But as of about an hour and a half ago, I now have a brand new MacBook Air that's going to get sent to me in mid-October.
Oh, really? Very nice.
Nice.
Oh, Brian reconstructing one?
No, I just called him first to tell him that I bought it.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right.
So, but I went to the Apple website and I bought a brand
those are
new
very
MacBook
nice.
Air. So my old MacBook Air that I'm currently using is a 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's a 2012, so it's a little long in the tooth. And the battery is totally and completely dead on it. I might still go ahead and try to replace the battery, which will cost me $80. But the problem is I can't really upgrade EOS much at all. Yeah. And so at best, it's going to be a machine that's only going to be good for doing some light surfing on the net. So, but it might be, for $80, I can get it back working again. So, but let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm taking a quick look here at what people are saying. Thank you very much for the offer, TJ. That's a possibility. I may also, I think I owe you an email back or a response on Discord, and I haven't forgotten it. It's just my computer situation has been crazy. And so the original plan was that I was going to be doing the show on my brother's computer because I was going to be sitting right next to my brother in his living room like I did the one time because I was supposed to be in Iowa this week. I'm on my way to Iowa and two things happen. Well, three things happen. The first thing is I-70 in Indiana is a total and complete disaster. And it took me 3 hours to get to the far side of Indianapolis. And that is at most a 2-hour trip.
Can confirm. But like literally I got to Indianapolis for Gen Con and I was like, how do you just like close down an entire interstate?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad. And so I'm already in a great mood. And then I call my dad because I call him every day. And I said, was telling him about it and stuff. And I said, I'm looking forward to getting there. And he goes, well, just to let you know, the internet's out. And I said, what do you mean it's out? And because he's had this intermittent problem with his internet, and it would like stop working for a while. And the phone would stop working, and then it'd start working again, and he'd cancel the service call because it's working now. And it's like, what are you doing? And so then I call up my brother Delon, who's currently watching the show. I saw him posting earlier.
Yes, he is.
I called up my brother Delon and said, hey, guess what? I'm going to be spending an awful lot of time at your place. And his response is, no, you're not. We've had a positive COVID test. It's like, shit. So
we had the whole family.
Sister-in-law, who's well vaccinated, but my family's all vaccinated. So she's just dealing with a bad cold, but the last thing in the world you want is to somebody else coming into the household in that situation. So I was going back for an Alzheimer's walk, ended up not going to the Alzheimer's walk because there were going to be 5 of us. 2 of them are quarantined. The other 2 are my niece and nephew who said, Mom and Dad are sick with COVID. We're not coming home. And so it was going to be just me. So I aborted and went and saw Arias Kaufman's brother Vic up in the Chicago area. And then when I came back, it's a 5-hour trip from Vic's house to Dayton. And that 5-hour trip only took me 9 hours.
Only.
Outstanding.
Yeah, it took me 10 hours to get back to home on
I-65 was just plain closed.
Yep.
There was a stretch of I-65 I think they were doing road work, and then they had a traffic accident on top of it. And then so
half of Indianapolis they've got actual road work for the city itself.
So after going like 2.5 miles in 90 minutes, they fed everybody off onto a 2-lane highway. So you had an interstate's worth of traffic showing up on a 2-lane.
That's why I'm glad that when I was there, we got off on the interstate, we got into the parking deck. Marriott was right across from the parking deck. And if I needed to go somewhere, like the convention center was right across the street. And then anywhere else, we had the bird scooters.
Yeah, it was, and one of the reasons why it took 9 hours is that I sort of said, you know what, I'm not going to try to go back to 70 because 70 is going to be problematic. at some point along there. I'm going to try to sort of like figure out a route that takes me on only Indiana highways. And I kept running into, like, at one point it was a bridge out, and then I kept running into road closures. So, including one road where I kept trying to get around the closure. And so I drove.
Oh. All right.
He drove.
Drive down.
So tune in next week for the second half of that story. Sorry, you.
What happened?
Oh, you just completely cut out there for a little bit.
You said you drove, and then you just came back.
Yeah. Everybody will be waiting next week for the second half of that story.
No, the short version is I just kept trying to drive around this closed road, and I couldn't get around it, and so it was a trip.
Do you use Waze at all, Chris?
So, in theory, sometimes yes. But it seemed to, Waze didn't seem to be giving me particularly good information on some stuff. And
so you can go into the parameters of your drive and say, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that.
And for the problem is, once I actually sort of figured out what was going on, once I got off the interstate, I was moving very consistently, and I should have just pulled over at some point and pulled Waze out and played with it a little bit. As it was, I was sort of trying to do it while not stopping. Mm-hmm. But it was problematic. It was problematic, as is this internet connection for me today. So, but luckily, I'm going to hand the ball to Pat.
All right. I'm going to pop back behind the screen.
All right. See you, Alyssa.
Guys.
See you later, Alyssa. I'm going to hand the ball to Pat, and Pat can take over. So go for it, Pat.
All right. Sounds good. So, thank you, everybody. And once again, welcome to the show. Really glad to have everybody here again today. So today, a few months ago, I did basically a game recap of D7 versus a Constitution class cruiser. So today I thought I would do a recap of the newer Katinga class cruiser against the motion picture Enterprise. And so we're going to go ahead and just talk about that. And this was basically a game that my friend Chandler and I played. He was a guest on the show once. And so we'll kind of treat it as though some cadets walk into a bridge simulator for a tactical simulation. And this was the results of it. And they decided they could take on a Klingon cruiser. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen now, and we'll see where this goes. All right. And we will put that over there, and we'll make that right there. All right. How do we look? Looks like we've got the screen up. So this is the Katinga class cruiser. It's the newer model cruiser that we see in beginning at the motion picture. Of course, they got they got destroyed by a big floating cloud in space. But it was really powerful. So and so anyways, this is the ship we see at the beginning of the motion picture. And basically it was the motion picture book talks about this quite a bit. Kirk talks about the Katinga a little bit. It's their newer model. It could take on a Constitution class cruiser, and Enterprise was really scrambling over it. So, and then it's going to take on essentially the motion picture Enterprise, or actually not the motion picture Enterprise. It'll take on the Wrath of Khan Enterprise, the refit from the Wrath of Khan. And that's the ship we're going to be using today. So those are our two ships. And then I'll just kind of go through a little bit of info on each of them so we can learn. So the Enterprise 1B. That's only my own personal thing, just to differentiate it from the motion picture class Enterprise, because as you recall, in the motion picture, if their warp drive was down, they couldn't use their phasers. But in the Wrath of Khan, we actually see them firing their phasers after they get attacked by Khan when their warp drive and main reactor are down. So they had clearly fixed this problem. So this is the version that had fixed that particular problem. And so it's also got slightly upgraded phasers. It's got the RIM 12C phasers. It's got them up here. Actually, let me get the little laser pointer out. So up here on the saucer, you got the 3 saucer mounted dorsal phasers. And then, of course, there's 3 more underneath on the bottom of the saucer. And then we've got a couple of these RSM-14B. These are the littler phasers here on the back of the Enterprise and underneath it as well. The underneath on the bottom side of the saucer on this side, and on this side, there's a pair of phasers as well. So if someone were to get underneath a Constitution class cruiser, it could get hit by an awful lot of phasers. And then, of course, we got the good old Mark VI photon torpedoes over here. So this is kind of our version of the ship. And, FASA did a version of it for their Starship Combat game, and we see various versions in there as well. So that's interesting. Okay. Next, the contender is the Katinga class cruiser. Now, for fairness, or just for play balance, we took actually a newer model of the Katinga up against our Enterprise, just to make it a little more of a sporting fight. So we call this one the Katinga 3. 1 would be the actual motion picture version, and then there's an improved version, and then we've got the 3rd version here. So it's got some upgrades. And of course, it's got disruptors all over the place. Under here, there's a couple disruptors. There's one over here and one over here. It's got some disruptors underneath there and another one there. And then it's got a disruptor here on the boom right there. And then it's got some disruptors right over here and over here. So no shortage of disruptors. And then, of course, in the motion picture, we saw that it fired off 3 photon torpedoes out of the tube in the front. And we only ever saw it fire 1 from the aft torpedo tube. Don't know exactly how many it can fire, but I'm betting on 1. So, because I don't think the Klingons aren't really the type to hold back if they can keep shooting at something, I think. So, all right. And normally we've played this game in Tabletop Simulator throughout COVID, but this was one where we got to get together for a live game. And so, as you can see, it's not quite as nice between my photographic skills and the lighting in the room and stuff. It's not quite as nice as that Tabletop Simulator pictures that we did. But this is basically the start off, how the battle started off. You'll notice that the shields around the ship are in blue, so that means they're all at full power. We have turn 1, phase 1, and there's 3 phases in each game turn that we played. And up here will be a little bit of information about it. But this was the table we played on. As you can see, we were playing with miniatures, and really the center of the ship is basically right there at the center of the base. So anyways, we started off head-on approach. The Klingon decided to angle off in this direction here, and maybe make things a little more complicated for the Federation heavy cruiser, which is not quite as maneuverable. And so the Fed came in nice and fast, and you can see how we each moved there. The Federation ship kind of slid off at an angle. The Klingon kept going. But again, no shots fired at this point. And then at the next movement, Federation kept charging on, and the Klingon angled off a little further to the right. So in game terms, the Federation ship was moving at speed 5. So maximum impulse would be represented by a speed of 8. So the Feds are moving pretty fast, but at full impulse, you don't really turn very well. So, and then the Klingon was moving at 3, where it can turn very, very well, very sharp, which is slightly less than 1/2 impulse power. So speed of 4 would be 1/2 impulse power in terms of this particular matchup. So, and 1/4 impulse would be a speed of 2 in this particular game. And right over here, these are just little information cards about each of the ships and what their planned maneuver was and stuff, if you wonder about that. So then Federation ship slides off. Klingon ship keeps going, not quite flying straight at the Klingon, or not quite yet ready to turn after the Federation ship. So the Klingon's moving to the right, and what the Klingon is trying to do is use evasive maneuvers and avoid getting hit by 4 photon torpedoes in the face. So hoping that the Federation ship's going to fire his torpedoes, waste the shots on a maneuvering Klingon, and then the Klingon can swoop in and finish off the Federation ship. So, and you'll also note, you can kind of see it trailing back right over here. Right over here is a little shuttle. The Klingon ship's going fast enough to have a shuttle out there that provides a little bit of extra jamming support to the ship. So if you're moving too fast, you outrun your shuttle and it doesn't provide any support. So, but this limits the Klingon ship to about a speed of 3 in this particular case. So it's a tactical trade-off. Klingon can't go as fast, but he gets a little bit of jamming support. Federation ship is still cruising along at high speed. He was probably hoping to do a high-speed pass, hit with photon torpedoes, run away, recharge, come back, and finish off the Klingon. So, but nobody's shot yet either at this point. Oh, but as we all expect from the Federation fired first. So, like I said, group of cadets in the simulator playing it out. So, don't believe the propaganda. They do shoot first. And in this particular case, it was the USS Excalibur. Fires its port and forward phaser banks, and AMAR is still maneuvering evasively, and the Excalibur slows down to half impulse. Does a little bit of damage, and you can see down here, the shields are still green. Not perfect, but still green. So not too bad. Then both ships make sharp turns into each other. Federation ship fires off a bunch of photon torpedoes, fires off some phasers. We had to use some real low tech special effects, just little pieces of paper with we should have just written pew pew on them at this point. But and hits the Klingon ship, knocks down its shields, and probably even does a little bit of damage on the inside of the ship. But now the Federation player is toothless. So this is one of those things about tactics is that once somebody does shoot, if you're still there, in this particular case, now he's toothless for a little bit. So let's see what the Klingon does. So I zoomed in on the ship, and you can see that that attack completely knocked out the Klingon's left shields and damaged a couple systems. Not that bad really, and a little bit of structural damage. So nothing too egregious there. So pretty much just took out a shield. Let's see here. So what do you think? Should the Klingon keep turning left to get a better shot, or turn away? But just understand, if the Klingon keeps turning to the left, he's going to keep that down left shield exposed to the Federation ship. So the Klingon could, of course, turn right and at least hit the Fed with the aft photon torpedo and maybe some aft disruptors and stuff. But it's not really the Klingon way, I think. So here we go. So the Klingon also, of course, returns fire at this point. And basically does just a little bit of damage to the Federation's front shield. Nothing major. Didn't get any torpedoes involved in that one. And then, so basically this slide sort of shows everyone's plan for the next phase. AMAR is going to make another hard left turn, and the Excalibur maintains its heading, just moves slightly to the left. And AMAR orders power to reserve power to his port shield to keep from taking another hit from the Feds. But that does at least bring up a little bit of shield power on the left side. Federation ship flies by and fires those aft phasers that we talked about into AMAR's damaged shield, causes just a little bit of damage to the Klingon ship again, but nothing too serious. Having that battery power recharge the shield helped a little bit. So next, AMAR slows to 1/4 impulse power, so it can turn around really fast. Makes a nice hard turn, and Excalibur is doing a hard turn to starboard at half impulse, so it's less maneuverable and going faster. So in that sense, the AMAR can certainly outturn the Enterprise or the Excalibur at this point. AMAR puts a little bit more power to the left shield as well, and starts building the left shield back up. So and then Excalibur fires his starboard phasers, does some minor damage to the Katinga's forward shield there, and brings him down to about 77%. And you can see right here just the damage, little bit of damage that was done. So far, nobody's badly hurt. Ships have taken a few pot shots at each other. Klingon's got one shield down, and let's see here. So next, Excalibur fires his phasers, and AMAR fires disruptors and torpedoes, taking down the Excalibur's aft shield now. So this is the current status of the shields, as you can see here. Excalibur has his shields are down. Little bit of damage to the front shield over here on the Klingon ship. And the Klingon's in a pretty good position right now. However, it did damage the shuttle bay and a tractor beam. So nothing catastrophic at this point. Now, because we're on a table and the Federation player was approaching the table's edge, we had to make a little change to space and time and move things back to the center of the table here. So Yorktown orders hard to starboard and fires phasers. So you can see there the fires some phasers, another 20% loss to AMAR's forward shields. Or I guess this would probably be AMAR 2, because AMAR got destroyed by V'ger in the motion picture. So sorry about the typo. My apologies to the Klingon Empire. So Klingon players got some damaged shields. Fed players got some damaged shields. And then the Klingon also returns fire, firing disruptors at the Federation ship, and a little bit of damage to the starboard shield. So AMAR is only able to fire disruptors because the photon torpedoes are still recharging. And you notice here that a little bit of shield power starts coming back to the Federation's aft shield. Okay, so so that's after all the firing is done, and then this is basically what the two ships look like at this point. So just in some detail, the AMAR's got some damaged, couple damaged disruptors over here. These two on the boom are damaged. You see the Federation's trying to cut the head off the Klingon ship there. A little bit of system damage, no big deal, and certainly nothing catastrophic. Power systems are all good, and just a little bit of shield damage. Excalibur, also just a little bit of system damage over here, those little red boxes, and the underside phasers are damaged on the Excalibur. That's about it. So everybody's pretty much in good fighting form. Just a little bit of shield damage on all the ships. Okay, next. So those arrows just kind of show you how the ships moved for this particular one, for this particular turn. And then Amar's torpedoes are ready. So Amar fires a full strike on the Excalibur here. Photon torpedoes and disruptors. And does a little bit of damage to the Enterprise, or to the Excalibur, excuse me. So you can see the aft shield is completely down again on the Excalibur. No serious return fire at this point from Excalibur. Still just trying to move away. And then Excalibur slows down to a speed of 3/8 impulse, and keeps making a hard right turn. Basically, the Excalibur is desperate to turn that aft shield away from Amar. And of course, Amar, you'll notice, is pointed towards the aft end of the ship of the Excalibur. What that means is that it's called a lag turn. And the idea is, as opposed to leading the turn where you try to intercept the Excalibur and get closer, doing a lag turn, trying to stay a little farther away. And what that does is increases the chances of getting on the Excalibur's tail. But Excalibur's going faster than Amar, so the geometry doesn't quite work there. But that means Excalibur is spending a bunch of power and stress turning his ship super hard, and Amar is just kind of flying along because I can always the Katinga class cruiser has enough side disruptors to fire a few shots into that down shield if Amar just gets behind. Let's see here. So Amar has started evasive maneuvering and accelerates to 1/2 impulse while turning to starboard. Excalibur fires phasers at full power and damages Amar's shuttle bay and knocks a disruptor offline through its shields. So shields weren't quite penetrated, but they're definitely in bad shape. But, a little bit of damage always leaks through. Otherwise, otherwise we wouldn't have those explosions on the bridge all the time. So definitely makes it more exciting. Okay. And then Excalibur keeps making another hard turn to hard turn to starboard. And Amar continues its pursuit, and it's doing a lag turn. And you notice Amar is kind of getting closer and closer to getting to that aft shield, because now Amar is doing a lag turn and going faster, which means Excalibur has to turn really, really hard to avoid exposing its aft shield. So that's what Amar is trying to do at this point. And again, Excalibur kind of runs out of steam, can't keep making that hard turn. And then Amar continues the lag pursuit, making nice, shallow, wide turns to stay behind. If you think of concentric circles, I'm on the Amar is on the outside of that concentric circle. So as long as he's going faster, he can start gaining good position on the Excalibur there, and able to fire disruptors again at the aft shields, and did some minor damage to the Excalibur. So if you can knock down a shield and then save your fire and your power until you can hit that shield again by outmaneuvering the other person, you can keep whittling away at an opponent. So all right. Now,
hey, Pat?
Yes.
So we got a question here. Does your rule set have cinematic leaky shields?
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. as a matter of fact, if you look, this would be really hard for people to see. If you look at that yellow die that I am circling right here, there's an H on it. And that means it's a heavy hit. If you have a heavy hit, a point of damage leaks through the shields. And so photon torpedoes tend to cause heavy hits, and the big phasers on the saucer of a Federation cruiser have a strong tendency to cause heavy hits also. And so, yes, ships do take damage even though the shields have not failed completely. So it works out pretty well. And it also gives your damage control team something to do. And yes, it is very cinematic. We like to sit around and imagine, consoles exploding and, rocks being thrown from the ceiling into the bridge, all the usual stuff. So yes, we do have those rules.
So
go ahead.
Okay. So there's one other question here, and that is, could you talk a little bit more about the running out of steam? Momentum doesn't wind down in space.
Yeah. That was a poor choice of words. And actually, I misread it. The Excalibur had continued to make hard turns. So I looked at it. It just didn't look like as sharp a turn right there when I said that. But then I read something else. And so, yes, I misspoke. So no, running out of steam was not the correct phrase. Good point. Thank you.
But it probably is worth pointing out that if you're using warp engines to move around, the traditional, object in motion stays in motion stuff doesn't really apply, because warp engines are about manipulating space-time.
Yeah. However, this is a fight at impulse. And so ships still, accelerate and decelerate, and that sort of thing. At this point, nobody has warped out of the fight. So, let's see here. So yeah, so Excalibur in this particular case. Let me back this up one here. Huh, that's interesting. Huh. Very, very interesting. All right. I cannot explain this, but let me try this real quick. Okay. There we go. Okay, so Excalibur is here. The Klingon has just gotten a shot on the aft shield. The nice thing about this particular geometry is that I know Captain Ramius at the top of the hour is going to make a hard right emergency turn at this point. And this in theory gives me the option, or gives the, okay, I was playing the Klingon, Chandler was playing the Federation ship in this particular game. So I at least have the option of going straight and getting away, or at least, extending the range out a little bit if he does an emergency turn. Because I'm pretty sure I know that that's coming up here. However, so then Excalibur does make that, it's kind of the full impulse, high stress turn, flyer apart kind of thing. And it slows down to less than 1/4 impulse and turns around very hard. If you can see these little counters that we have in our game, my Klingon ship has taken 1 stress at this point. I think I made 1 hard turn. The Excalibur, you see the little stress markers, but those are little ×2. So he's actually taken 4 stress at this point. We just use that to represent that you're risking damage to your ship by pushing things really, really hard. And that, of course, is what the Excalibur was doing here. So makes an emergency turn to starboard, and Amar basically made a hard turn to starboard as well. And this is going to be the big blowout. You see the Amar's got some damaged front shields. The Excalibur has damaged front shield, so neither player's shields are in great shape. So this is just kind of a representation. The Klingon was able to get off his shots first, and so these are the cards. And they don't show up well because this is zoomed in from the picture that we had. So, but as you can see, this is transporters, shuttle bays hit, ripe warp engine, quarters, impulse drive, structure, any hit, which means you get to shut down a system, some structure damage, shield power loss, some damage to the left warp engine, and some weapon damage to the Excalibur. So it did knock out the shields and do quite a bit of internal hits there. And then the Excalibur returns fire, just does some minor damage to the AMAR, about basically knocked out these are the hits to the AMAR at this point. So a little bit of structure damage, knocked out what, basically hit the crew quarters in the on the AMAR, of which there are not many, and knocked out a transporter. So I guess we won't be beaming Marines over to capture the ship, but did a little bit of damage there. And AMAR's front shields, as you can see here, are also down. And then basically the two wounded ships fly by each other, and Excalibur fires its aft phasers, and then does a little bit of damage to the side shield. And AMAR fires starboard disruptors, knocking down Excalibur's aft shield, damaging impulse engines, aft phasers, transporters, shuttle bay. And Excalibur decides the cadets decide that they have had enough, and they retreat. They engage the warp engines and retreat. So, and that ends the battle. But it was a fun, lots of maneuvering, lots of interesting tactical decisions to make throughout the game, and it was definitely a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And that's about it. Oh, those are some pictures from the other one. So as you can see, the tabletop simulator, I think, does a little bit better of a job with the graphics. Just look a lot better. So in the future, we'll probably continue to use that.
Yeah, right. And you could recreate stuff in tabletop simulator too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
One of the nifty things about tabletop simulators, you don't have to actually use it to play a game.
That's true. We did recently spend a weekend running a campaign, and basically a Klingon Federation border war. Took the Star Charts game and made a map on tabletop simulator, and had the ships. Yes, right. Any hit is pretty much the bowling alley is offline, the captain's bowling alley. So definitely. But yeah, anyways, so that was about it. Good game. It was a lot of fun to play. It's kind of fun to recreate these. So,
well, you might make do with the bowling alley being offline as long as the Olympic-sized swimming pool is available.
That's right. Well, cetacean ops, right? That's got to be. Well, you don't want the you don't want the gravity to go out there. So, all right. And so that's about all we have for today. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Glad you joined us. If you like these, please don't forget, like and subscribe. Help out the cause. And we'll be back hopefully next week. Unfortunately for me, I'm going to be traveling a lot for quite a while, so I am not going to be quite as regular. I won't be making as many regular appearances as I've had over the last year. But I'll get here when I can. Maybe sending me to Germany for a little while in next month. So.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be at the Capclave Science Fiction Convention next week. So I will, once I get there into the hotel on Friday, I'll do a test of the internet and see how the internet works. So there's a possibility the plan is to do a show with probably with my friend Walter Hunt, who's written some military science fiction stuff in his Dark Wing series. But we may end up calling an audible if the internet connectivity just is problematic. So now that we're sort of coming out of COVID and we're spending more time going off and doing stuff like that, I've decided that one of the things I need to do, Delon says, assuming I have a working computer, the plan is to take this one and for me to do a little bit more playing around with the Surface Pro, because maybe the Surface Pro is the answer for this. Tonight, the main issue was the internet connectivity. I don't know if I expect that to be any better in the hotel or not. We'll see. So I'm going to play around with it a little bit and see what we can do. And I'm also going to do a little bit of research to see if maybe, some sort of portable Wi-Fi hotspot is something that if I can use the show to talk myself into thinking that a portable Wi-Fi hotspot is justified. So I'm usually pretty good about talking myself into making technological purchases like this. So,
yeah.
But that's my thinking on that. So hopefully see you all next week. Also, hopefully sometime in the next week, I'll be able to go back to the last episode and this episode and pull the comments down and respond to comments and put them in the Aries Studio channel version of this, like I try to. I'm a little bit behind on that this past week. Was not nearly as conducive to that as I wanted it to be. So, but I'll get caught up. That's it for me.
All right. I'm out. Everybody have a great week, and hopefully we'll see everybody soon. Take care.
See you later, everybody.
Bye-bye.